I'm John Atack.
You remembered your name. I'm Sam Atack.
You remembered your name.
Yeah.
And this is an Opening Minds presentation. And on this day, we're going to talk about the term human predator and the various kinds of human predator. And I'm going to start by looking clever and quoting a man called Shakespeare, Bill Shakespeare, who said, "Some are born great, some achieve greatness, and some have greatness thrust upon them." Now, sadly, neither of us is in that position of being great.
Nope.
But we will make ourselves great again with any luck. However, the situation is that with predatory people, some of them are born that way. And that's reckoned to be, you can do this. What's wrong with them?
I don't know which area of the brain is it.
It's called the paralimbic. And that runs between the limbus, which is the part of the brain that is the same in a crocodile as it is in a human being. The donut. It's also called, I think that's what limbus really means. All these lovely fancy words, donut in the brain, which has got the amygdala or almonds on the sides of it. You've also got a bit in your brain called the walnut. But, it's all clever stuff. There are people who are born with a slight deficiency in the connection between the kind of animal reaction brain, the limbus, and the prefrontal cortex, which is meant to be the clever bit. Though, who knows?
I don't have a clever bit.
Never looked at one. If I did have one, I'd get rid of it. So some are born that way, that they have a deficiency that makes them predatory, that makes them view other people as prey. Some people have it thrust upon them. They grow up in an environment that makes them distrustful of everybody around them, which is to say that they can't trust one or more of their caregivers who are predatory in their attitudes. And you can see criminal families going from one generation to the next where they may well be born with this thing,
with traits.
But then they're in an environment of distrust.
Because even if you have the traits, like with the work of James Fallon, you don't necessarily go out and hurt people.
James Fallon is what's called a prosocial sociopath, and we will continue to talk about him frequently. You can actually find his videos on YouTube, but they're nowhere near as good as ours. He is somebody who basically in his 50s, as a neuroscientist himself and a guy with a couple of gene companies going on, he had some brain scans done of him, and I think it was 9 of his family members, and he then had them anonymized, so randomized, so that he could see, without being biased. And he was looking for things like plaques in the brain that might indicate the onset of Alzheimer's or something like that. He was just generally having a look because he's a curious sort of person. And his on one of them, he said, there it is. There's the paralimbic deficiency. Which one of my relatives is this? And his technician went, that's you, mate. Though probably not in that accent because they're in California. It's probably more like, that's you, mate.
Good.
That's a bit more like Australian. Not doing well with accents today. So yet he has devoted his life largely to good work, but he has the traits of a sociopath. He has a lack of care for other people's feelings. He likes making a fool out of other people. My favourite story is the one about him getting a fellow professor to, go to some seedy club and end up dancing naked on the table because he's so drunk. And that's his idea of fun.
Taking his brother to a cave with the Ebola bats.
That's in Marburg, that he said, let's go to the Marburg caves. And it was only when his brother got home that he realised that he'd been exposed potentially to Marburg Ebola, which is not very good for you. So he takes silly risks, basically. Childish, foolish things to do. But he's somebody who has the actual brain thing. He also has the genetic alleles that are associated with the psychopathic or sociopathic condition. You also have people who achieve the condition. Now, these are people who've not necessarily been through an abusive childhood, but they feel that the world has hurt them in some way, and so they withdraw and they seek to develop an immunity to feeling, and they seek not to care about other people. So there are 3 roots here. What that tells us is that when we, I gave a talk in July in Manchester, and a member of the audience said, "Oh, you shouldn't call them predators. You should talk about predatory behaviours." And she made a good point, really, which is that this is not a fixed condition, that it is possible to overcome it, as James Fallon largely did, and be pro-social rather than antisocial. So give us some types, get to DSM-5 and give us some types of...
Narcissists, borderlines, psychopaths, obviously, pro-social psychopaths, and Machiavellian personality.
Machiavellian personality disorder, people who are very cunning. There's a lot of disagreement about this, isn't there? Which of those are actually included in the last... We're talking about the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of the American Psychiatric Association.
Psychopath isn't included. It's
That's
the
right.
antisocial personality disorder.
Antisocial
which, if we combine it with the earlier term, we can get pro-social, antisocial personality disorder, which they should make that a thing.
But if it's something that's wrong with your brain, it's not a disorder, is it? It's a mental illness.
Yeah.
And so it's very naughty of the psychiatrists to do that. Also, they talk about the narcissistic personality disorder in there. And that's telling you that this is curable. If something's a disorder, there's something you can do about it. And the interesting thing with borderline and narcissism is that once the person has realized they have the disorder, then they're most of the way towards curing it. It's just getting it through all of the, I'm going to use this word, persiflage. That's good, isn't it? That's the first time I've been able to use that word in 10 or 20 years. And it's not actually the right word, but I thought I'd throw it in there because people go, "Oh, wow, he's clever." You get through all of the nonsense that people use to persuade themselves that what they're doing is the right thing, the my side or confirmation bias, which is overwhelming in narcissistic and borderline people, that they are so convinced that they're doing the right thing. They can believe that they're very stable geniuses. They can believe that coal is beautiful and clean. There are all sorts of imaginative ways of believing that they are, beautiful, wonderful, fantastic people. And this brings us into a variety of the varieties of narcissist. One of my great heroes, and I have quite a lot of heroes actually. There are a lot of people I really have tremendous admiration for. You're one of them actually. I think you're. Oh no, is that?
I don't share the same.
No, of course you wouldn't. Why would you? That wasn't Machiavellian personality disorder. That was the idea of bigging people up so they'll do as they're told. And
obviously it hasn't worked.
Obviously it hasn't worked so far. I haven't joined the Unification Church of Salmonanity yet, but I will one day, probably. If you keep working.
I'll sign you up against your will.
Against my will. Yeah, just when I'm asleep, get me to sign a piece of paper and empty my bank account of the 27 pence that's in there.
Well, I think as your child, I'm already doing that. But...
Yeah, that is true, actually. Gosh. But that's the dependent personality disorder. That's a quite different thing. Right. So if such a person who is predatory can realise that they're predatory, and that doesn't mean be told by all the people around them that they're predatory, it means they actually realise that they're predatory, then there's every hope for them to recover and become pro-social. And we like to see that. But we'd also like to see that people who are devastatingly antisocial are restricted in some way and prevented from becoming leaders of countries.
So politicians should take the Hare psychopathy checklist.
Yeah, revised.
I think there does.
That's what you have to call it. That's the Hare psychopathy checklist revised, because there was another one before. Yes. So everybody who stands for political office should take a series of tests. I think very fairly simple tests to see if they're actually fit for office. I look around the world at, we've got Putin, we've got Abe in Japan, we've got Duterte in the Philippines, we've got
Mao.
Bolsonaro. Mao's
Oh, no, he's dead.
not with us anymore.
G, that's what I meant. I get
Xi
them confused.
Jinping. Just look around at the world, and we've got some pretty crazy people.
Did we mention Modi?
Modi in India. We're not happy about any of these people, and we think that it would be good if there was some testing to make sure that they don't get power. So you can be born with it, you can have it imposed upon you through childhood, or you can decide that you don't want to play anymore. And we would like to see a society where people are judged by what they contribute to society, the good that they do, the virtues that they have. It's very distressing to see that democracy has led us into tyranny in so many cases. And we would like to see a fundamental understanding that there are some very good people and there are some very bad people. And then in between, there's the rest of us, the great majority. And as Martin Luther King said, it's not evil that's the problem in the world, and it's not the evil people, it's the mediocre people who do nothing. So what we would recommend is understanding the qualities, if that's the right word, of the human predator, and keeping yourself at a distance from them, looking at your own behaviour and seeking to be positive towards other people and helpful, and making the world a charming and wonderful place in which to be, so that we don't actually blow each other up or completely destroy the earth.
I'd like that.
That would be nice, wouldn't it? So thank you for sharing your time with us. I think I'm still John Atack.
And I'm definitely Sam Atack.
And we look forward to sharing your company again soon. Thank you so much.